Welcome to a thrilling story full of suspense, mystery, and shocking twists. If you love gripping tales, don't forget to subscribe for more. Now, let's begin. Sophia awoke to the gentle caress of dawn filtering through the sheer curtains of her luxurious honeymoon suite. The room, an elegant blend of soft hues and refined decor, whispered promises of a new beginning. On the polished bedside table lay a handwritten note in flowing script. To my dearest Sophia, every moment with you is a dream come true.
The tender words sent a warm flutter through her heart.
In that serene morning light, every detail of her life seemed touched by magic. Only hours before, Sophia had walked down a flower-strewn aisle, her eyes brimming with tears of joy, as she vowed eternal love to Daniel, a man whose kind eyes and unwavering smile had swept her off her feet. Their wedding had been nothing short of a fairy tale, an opulent celebration of passion and promise, with every moment orchestrated to perfection. The suite itself was a masterpiece, a spacious haven with a view of a manicured garden, plush furnishings that embraced her every curve, and delicate aromas of fresh linen and blooming roses that mingled in the air. Sophia spent the early morning savoring these simple pleasures. She admired the delicate porcelain vase holding a single red rose, a quiet symbol of their love, and wondered how effortlessly her dreams had merged with reality. Daniel's thoughtfulness was evident in every small detail: the love note, the carefully chosen decor, and even the soft instrumental music that played in the background, as if to underscore the romance of the moment. Yet, as she lingered in this idyllic reverie, a subtle whisper of uncertainty crept into her mind. In the midst of her blissful isolation, she couldn't help but question, could perfection truly exist without hidden shadows? The notion was as fleeting as a half-remembered dream, a mere flicker of doubt against the radiant certainty of love. For now, she chose to cast aside that whisper. Today was her first day as Daniel's wife, a day to celebrate passion, commitment, and the intoxicating thrill of a future built together. The morning passed slowly as Sophia prepared for the day ahead. Each measured movement, dressing in a soft silk gown, carefully applying her makeup, was imbued with the significance of a new chapter in life. The suite's tranquil atmosphere, bathed in golden sunlight, seemed to mirror the hope that now filled her soul. Outside, the world stirred to life, yet inside, time appeared to hold its breath in anticipation of the promise that lay ahead. Stepping onto the private balcony, Sophia allowed herself a moment of solitude. The view of the blooming garden and distant hills brought a deep sense of peace, and she silently vowed to cherish every moment of this fragile, exquisite happiness. Unbeknownst to her, however, beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect world, forces were gathering, forces that would soon transform this dream into a waking nightmare. For now, she remained blissfully unaware, wrapped in the cocoon of love and promise that the new day had so generously bestowed upon her. That night, after a sumptuous dinner beneath a star-freckled sky at the resort's open-air terrace, Sophia's thoughts slowly returned to the quiet intimacy of their suite. Daniel had retired for the night after showering, leaving Sophia to drift in the comforting embrace of her own reflections. As the silken sheets wrapped around her, she lay awake in the dim glow of a bedside lamp, her mind replaying the day's tender moments. In a sudden, almost imperceptible movement, Daniel emerged from the bathroom. As he moved toward the bed, the soft light caught a glimpse of something on his back that Sophia had never noticed before: a large, intricate tattoo. It was impossible to miss, a menacing skull split in two by a jagged lightning bolt. The design was both grotesque and mesmerizing, etched with an artistry that seemed to merge beauty with a dark intensity.
Sophia's breath hitched.
Her heart pounded in her chest as she studied the tattoo, trying to reconcile this new, startling detail with the man she believed she had known. Daniel's back, usually so familiar and comforting, now seemed a canvas for secrets. Questions, sharp and insistent, flooded her mind. Why had he hidden such a mark? Had he deliberately concealed it, or was it simply something he had never thought to mention? Her gaze flicked up to his sleeping face, serene and unsuspecting in the soft lamplight. The stark contrast between the gentle features she adored and the violent emblem on his skin sent a chill down her spine. In that moment, the room transformed from a sanctuary of love into a stage for uncertainty. Every heartbeat resonated with a dawning fear that the man lying beside her might not be entirely who he appeared to be. Sophia's thoughts spiraled into a maze of possibilities. Was the tattoo a relic of a past life, a remnant of secrets buried deep within Daniel's history? Or did it signify something far more sinister, a symbol of an affiliation with dangerous, shadowy forces? As her mind raced, she recalled the many small hints that had once seemed trivial, the fleeting evasive answers when she asked about his past, the way his eyes sometimes darkened with an unreadable emotion. Now, each of those fragments coalesced into a picture that was both horrifying and inexplicably real. For long moments, she lay paralyzed by the enormity of the revelation. The intimate silence of the room was shattered only by the sound of her own rapid breathing. The tattoo's presence had unraveled the delicate tapestry of trust that had so lovingly been woven over the course of their relationship. Yet, even as dread began to take root, a part of her clung to the hope that perhaps there was a benign explanation, a story of youthful rebellion or a scar from a long-forgotten past. But deep down, a dark intuition warned her otherwise. In that quiet, fragile hour before sleep reclaimed her, Sophia resolved to hold on to every precious moment of happiness, even as the shadow of mystery stretched over her heart. Uncertain and trembling, she drifted into an uneasy sleep, the image of that terrible tattoo burning in her mind, heralding the approach of secrets that would soon shatter her world. Lying in the quiet hours of the night, Sophia wrestled with the eerie image of the tattoo that now haunted her thoughts. Every time she tried to recall the familiar comfort of Daniel's presence, her mind involuntarily returned to that shocking revelation, a mark that rendered the man she loved strangely unfamiliar. In the darkness of their suite, with only the soft hum of the air conditioner for company, her emotions churned in a turbulent mix of love, suspicion, and growing dread. Despite her internal turmoil, Sophia forced herself to remain outwardly calm. As Daniel shifted in his sleep, she carefully observed his relaxed, unguarded form. His face was serene, and yet the contours of his body seemed to carry the weight of secrets he would never share. She wondered how someone so seemingly gentle and caring could harbor such a violent emblem, a symbol that spoke of danger and possibly a life lived in the shadows. Morning light had not yet crept through the windows when Sophia rose from the bed, her movements slow and deliberate. She avoided meeting Daniel's eyes, afraid that his gaze might reveal more than words ever could. Every careful step she took was punctuated by the silent questions that tormented her mind. Why had he never mentioned the tattoo? Had he deliberately hidden it from her, or had she simply overlooked it in the blissful haze of new love? The uncertainty gnawed at her, threatening to shatter the delicate illusion of their idyllic life. In the quiet of the early hours, Sophia wandered through the suite, seeking distractions in its familiar luxuries. She examined the delicate trinkets on a side table, the portraits adorning the walls, and even the carefully folded towels in the bathroom. Yet, no matter where her eyes landed, she could not shake the feeling that something was deeply amiss. The warmth of the room, once a comforting cocoon, now felt strangely oppressive, as if it were hiding a darker truth behind every smile and whispered promise. Daniel, for his part, moved through the morning with an air of practiced normalcy. Over breakfast, he recounted trivial details of the previous day, a shared joke here, a tender glance there, never once acknowledging the silent turmoil that now raged within Sophia. His voice was soft and reassuring, yet every loving word only seemed to intensify her isolation. It was as if an invisible barrier had formed between them, a chasm filled with unspoken questions and half-truths. As the day progressed, Sophia's mind wandered to moments in their brief time together that now took on a sinister cast. A casual remark, a fleeting look of discomfort, even the gentle way he touched her hand, all were re-examined under the harsh light of suspicion. The very intimacy they had shared became a source of torment, transforming into a labyrinth of uncertainty from which she could not escape. Though she longed to confront him, a part of her feared that any question might unleash a torrent of revelations too terrible to bear. Instead, she resolved to bide her time and search for answers on her own, gathering the fragmented clues that might illuminate the truth behind the stranger who slept beside her. And so, in the silent solitude of that long troubled day, Sophia embarked on a journey of hidden inquiry, a journey that would soon plunge her into a darkness from which there might be no return. That night, as the hotel's corridors fell silent and the only sound was the soft rustle of the air conditioning, Sophia found herself wide awake. Daniel's gentle snores provided a deceptive lullaby, lulling the room into a false sense of security. With trembling determination, she crept from the bed and reached for her smartphone. The glowing screen illuminated her worried face as she began to search for answers about the mysterious tattoo, a symbol that now had become an ominous specter in her mind. Her fingers moved hesitantly over the screen, entering keywords and scanning images. What she discovered sent a shock through her like an icy jolt. The tattoo was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was the insignia of a notorious criminal organization reputed for its involvement in human trafficking and contract killings. Each click, each line of text, painted a picture of a world steeped in violence and depravity, a world that she had never imagined could be linked to the man she loved. The more she read, the more her heart pounded with dread. Articles and dark forum posts described a network of criminals who used such tattoos as marks of initiation, as symbols of loyalty and brutality. In one chilling passage, Sophia learned that those who bore the emblem were often bound by a code of silence, their pasts shrouded in mystery and bloodshed. The thought that Daniel might be involved in such unspeakable acts made her blood run cold. The warm memories of their wedding day and his tender smiles now clashed violently with the horrifying possibility of a sinister secret lurking beneath his skin.
Sophias Mind räst.
Every detail of their life together suddenly took on a menacing hue. The late-night phone calls he had dismissed so easily, the half-truths about his past, the furtive glances when he thought she wasn't looking, all coalesced into a terrifying narrative. Could it be that the man who had promised her eternal love was, in truth, a part of a criminal underworld? Had he deliberately concealed this brutal affiliation, allowing her to be blissfully unaware while he led a double life? Tears welled in her eyes as she stared at the screen, the gravity of her discovery sinking in. The room, once a sanctuary of romance, now felt claustrophobic, a gilded cage with bars made of secrets and lies. Every heartbeat echoed with the weight of betrayal. In that small, silent space, the reality of her situation crystallized. She was no longer living in a dream. The darkness that loomed in the shadows of Daniel's past threatened to engulf her, leaving her with only a single desperate thought: escape. Yet, even as terror gripped her, a fierce resolve began to kindle in the depths of her soul. Sophia knew that uncovering the truth about Daniel's past was the only way to reclaim her life. With trembling fingers, she bookmarked pages, printed anonymous reports, and saved every scrap of information. The night stretched on, filled with the quiet clatter of her frantic keystrokes and the pounding of her heart. In the oppressive silence, Sophia vowed that when the morning came, she would no longer be a passive participant in this nightmare. The truth, however horrifying, had set her on a path from which there might be no return. As dawn broke over the resort, Sophia's eyes opened to a reality now shadowed by dread. With the horrifying knowledge of the tattoo's origin still burning in her mind, she resolved to find more answers about Daniel's past. The suite that had once felt like a luxurious haven now resembled a stage for a sinister drama, every corner concealing the possibility of hidden truths. Her day began with quiet determination. While Daniel appeared still blissfully unaware, smiling over breakfast, recounting casual anecdotes from the previous evening, Sophia meticulously observed his every move. Her heart raced as she mentally noted each behavior, every slight gesture that might hint at the secrets he harbored. After breakfast, she excused herself with a fabricated headache, retreating to the privacy of the suite under the guise of needing rest. In truth, she had a far more urgent task at hand. Sophia began her covert investigation by rummaging through Daniel's carefully packed suitcase. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid and examined its contents: a collection of crisp clothes, neatly folded documents, and a small, unassuming leather case. Her fingers brushed over a passport and an envelope containing receipts and travel itineraries. Every item was meticulously organized, as though every detail of his life had been scrubbed clean. Yet, the sterile perfection of his belongings only deepened her unease. It was as if Daniel had prepared an identity specifically to be flawless, leaving no trace of a past that might offer any clues. Next, she turned her attention to his personal effects, his smartphone and laptop. In the dim light of the suite, she navigated through his digital world, searching for anomalies in emails, messages, or hidden files. But much like the physical evidence, everything appeared immaculate: no encrypted folders, no suspicious communications, nothing that suggested a connection to the violent underworld she had uncovered the night before. The digital silence was deafening, a void that left her wondering whether he had deliberately erased every trace of a darker identity. Frustration mingled with terror as Sophia's investigation led her to a painful realization. The more she searched, the more it seemed that every aspect of Daniel's life had been curated to perfection. It wasn't that he had nothing to hide, rather it was as if he had designed his life to be an impenetrable fortress, one where every door was locked against intrusion. In the quiet aftermath of her fruitless search, a horrifying thought dawned on her. The evidence was missing not because it didn't exist, but because she was not the one doing the investigating at all. It became clear that Daniel, with his charming smile and reassuring words, had been orchestrating every detail of her world. Every conversation, every chance encounter, had been carefully staged. The realization was both paralyzing and enraging. In her heart, she recognized that she was trapped in a meticulously crafted illusion, a prison where every freedom was an illusion and every secret was a weapon. As she sat amid the scattered remnants of his personal effects, Sophia's resolve hardened. She knew now that uncovering the truth would not only require courage, but a willingness to confront the possibility that the man she loved was a master of deception. The hunt for answers had just begun, and with it came the painful awareness that the only safe path might be to reclaim control of her own life, even if that meant defying the man who had become both her husband and her captor. The next morning, the resort shimmered under a crystal sky as guests strolled along manicured paths, basking in the promise of a perfect day. Sophia, however, felt the weight of the previous night's discoveries like an iron chain around her heart. Despite her inner turmoil, Daniel greeted the new day with an unwavering smile that belied the dark secrets he kept hidden. Over a leisurely breakfast on the terrace, he spoke gently of future plans, a quiet walk around the resort, the possibility of starting a family, dreams painted with broad, hopeful strokes. "Let's take a walk together," he suggested softly, reaching out to take her hand. His voice was soothing, his touch tender, and for a moment, Sophia almost allowed herself to believe that everything would be all right. Yet beneath the surface of his affectionate demeanor, she could sense the undertow of control, a subtle force that tightened around her with every loving word. As they strolled along the winding paths lined with fragrant jasmine and carefully sculpted hedges, Daniel's conversation flowed effortlessly between the future and fleeting reminiscences of their wedding day. Every remark was imbued with a warmth that made Sophia's pulse quicken, even as her mind screamed in silent protest. Yet with every gentle caress of his hand and every tender look in his eyes, Sophia felt the trap closing in. The idyllic scenery, once a canvas for their shared dreams, now felt like the backdrop for a sinister performance. She began to notice small disquieting details. The way Daniel's gaze occasionally shifted toward the horizon, as if he were monitoring unseen movements, the practiced ease with which he steered conversations away from his past, and the subtle, almost imperceptible control he exerted over the day's events. It was as if every step he took was carefully choreographed, a dance in which she was forced to follow, no matter how her instincts urged her to break free. As the walk continued, the contrast between Daniel's tender words and the icy dread in Sophia's heart grew starker. His promises of a perfect life, filled with laughter, children, and endless love, sounded almost rehearsed, as though they were designed to lull her into complacency. The more he spoke of destiny and fate, the more she realized that she was merely a piece on his carefully arranged chessboard. The trap was sweet, wrapped in the allure of romance, but its edges were as sharp as the blade of a guillotine. By midday, while the resort bustled with the joyful chatter of vacationers, Sophia's thoughts raced behind closed eyes. She began to sense that every plan, every promise, was meticulously devised to keep her tethered to him, an unwitting prisoner in a gilded cage of his design. In the silence between their shared smiles and gentle touches, she made a silent vow: she would find a way out, even if the path meant severing the very bonds of love that had once given her life meaning. For now, though, she smiled and nodded, playing her part in the elaborate ruse. Each loving word from Daniel was like a silk thread binding her tighter, yet beneath that delicate exterior, a fierce resolve was taking shape. The sweetness of his trap might hold her for a time, but Sophia knew that true freedom could only be achieved by breaking those invisible chains. And so, amid the laughter and the perfumed air of the resort, she quietly began to plan her escape. As twilight settled over the resort in soft hues of lavender and gold, Sophia's mind raced with a singular thought: escape. Every moment of the day had been a delicate dance on the edge of danger, and now, alone in the privacy of their suite, she resolved to take back control of her life. With trembling determination, she began to orchestrate a plan, one that required utmost secrecy and unwavering resolve. Sophia's heart pounded as she considered every detail. She had already noticed the meticulously curated aspects of Daniel's life, the flawless organization of his suitcase, the impenetrable silence of his digital devices, and the carefully crafted narratives that he fed her. Now she needed to find a way to slip away unnoticed from the gilded cage in which she was confined. Late that afternoon, while Daniel was out on an errand he claimed was necessary for an upcoming business meeting, Sophia seized her chance. She quietly rummaged through their shared belongings, searching for items that could serve as her lifeline to freedom. In a locked drawer, she discovered her passport tucked away behind a collection of love letters. Her eyes widened as she realized the possibility of a world beyond the walls of this opulent prison. With swift, careful motions, she also gathered a modest sum of cash, a discreet cell phone, and a small vital key to the hotel room. Determined not to arouse suspicion, Sophia devised a ruse that would allow her to slip away under the guise of indulgence. She booked a flight home online, choosing a time when the resort's corridors would be quiet and the staff less vigilant. Then, with a calculated calm, She made arrangements to visit the spa, a luxury that the resort advertised lavishly, and intended to use that as her pretext for leaving the suite. Each step of her plan was marked by a surge of adrenaline and a creeping sense of defiance. As the sun began its descent behind the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of fiery red and deep purple, Sophia rehearsed her escape in her mind. She imagined the cool night air against her face as she hurried down deserted corridors, the sound of her own heartbeat echoing like a war drum. Every detail was etched into her memory: the quiet hum of the air conditioner in the hall, the distant murmur of night staff, and the gentle patter of footsteps that would mark her silent flight. Yet, even as she meticulously planned her exit, a nagging doubt lingered in the recesses of her mind. Had Daniel truly been the perfect husband, or had he carefully engineered every aspect of her life so that she would never have a chance to break free? The thought was both terrifying and galvanizing. In that moment, Sophia knew that her quest for freedom would come at a cost that might demand every ounce of her courage and resourcefulness. The room, now bathed in the cool light of dusk, felt transformed. What had once been a sanctuary now seemed like a prison whose walls were closing in with each passing second. With a heavy heart yet determined spirit, Sophia vowed that tonight, she would set the wheels of her escape in motion. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty and danger, but the promise of reclaiming her life was worth any risk. As the night deepened and shadows stretched long across the suite, Sophia took one final resolute breath and prepared to step into a future of unknown peril and hard-won freedom. Under the pretext of visiting the spa, a plan she had so carefully devised, Sophia arrived at the resort's lavish wellness center as the evening began to settle in. The reception area, with its soothing music and the faint scent of essential oils, initially offered a temporary illusion of safety. Here, the polished surfaces and gentle smiles of the staff reminded her of a world far removed from the dark secrets she had uncovered. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that she was truly free. However, that fleeting hope was brutally shattered when the receptionist, eyes narrowing in confusion, informed her that no reservation existed under her name. A chill ran down her spine as the realization dawned on her: her meticulous plan had been undermined by forces beyond her control. Before she could muster a response, the soft murmur of conversation gave way to a heavy, deliberate voice from behind her. "Why didn't you tell me you wanted to go to the spa?" the voice asked, laden with a tone of cold amusement. Sophia spun around, her heart pounding so fiercely it threatened to drown out all other sound. There, standing in the half-light near the reception desk, was Daniel. His gaze was steady and unervingly calm, and in that moment, the carefully constructed illusion of safety crumbled around her. The warm smiles, the gentle ambience, all were revealed to be part of an intricate trap designed to keep her exactly where he wanted her, under his control. Every instinct screamed at Sophia to run, yet her body felt momentarily frozen in terror. Daniel stepped forward slowly, his presence filling the narrow space with an overwhelming sense of authority. His eyes, once a source of comfort, now held an intensity that was both possessive and predatory. With each measured step, the room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as if to confine her in a prison of his making. In that charged moment, the spa's serene atmosphere transformed into a sinister stage. The friendly receptionist retreated silently behind the counter, and the ambient music became a haunting background to the drama unfolding. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribcage as she searched desperately for an escape route, but every exit appeared to be under the watchful gaze of the man she had once believed to be her savior. Daniel's smile, soft yet unnerving, carried an undercurrent of menace as he said, "Come with me, Sophia. There's no need for us to create a fuss." His voice was laced with a deceptive warmth that belied the danger in his words. The gentle insistence in his tone left her no choice but to follow him, even as every fiber of her being rebelled against the idea. Trapped in that moment, with the bright promises of freedom now snatched away, Sophia felt the full weight of her predicament. The spa, meant to be a haven of relaxation, had become a final, inescapable barrier, one that sealed her fate as Daniel led her back toward the suite. Each step echoed with a crushing realization that the dream of escape had been nothing more than a cruel illusion, meticulously orchestrated to keep her forever under his watchful control. The corridors of the hotel grew dark as Daniel led Sophia back to their suite, his steps measured and resolute. In the oppressive quiet of the passageway, every footstep seemed amplified, a reminder of the inescapable trap that now bound her. The suite's door swung open with a soft click, and inside, the room appeared both welcoming and confining, a gilded cell where every corner whispered of secrets and unyielding control. Once inside, Daniel's demeanor softened ever so slightly. He moved toward her with a disarming tenderness, his hand reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from her face. "I know what's on your mind," he murmured, his voice low and dangerously soft, as if he were sharing a secret meant only for her ears. "But you don't need to be afraid.
I love you, Sophia."
His words, intended to soothe, instead tightened the invisible noose around her heart. The gentle cadence of his voice was now tainted by an undercurrent of possessiveness, a reminder that her freedom was not his to grant. Sophia's mind whirled with the contradictions of that moment. The man who had once promised her eternal love now spoke with a cold certainty that left no room for dissent. Every affectionate word felt like a calculated step deeper into a labyrinth from which there was no escape. The suite, with its opulent furnishings and soft ambient lighting, now resembled a beautifully decorated prison, each elegant detail a gilded bar that confined her further. In the silence that followed, the oppressive reality settled in. Sophia realized, with a sinking heart, that Daniel's reassurances were not the balm of true love, but the chains of a master whose control was absolute. The promises of a bright future, of endless joy, had morphed into a suffocating certainty. There was no escape from him. Every attempt she had made to assert her independence had been anticipated and thwarted, leaving her trapped in a carefully constructed narrative where her voice no longer mattered. As the minutes dragged on in that stifling room, Sophia's thoughts turned to the possibility of rebellion, a spark of defiance buried deep within her. Yet even as that spark began to flicker, it was smothered by the weight of Daniel's unwavering control. With every tender caress and every soft-spoken promise, he was erasing the boundaries that once separated her from him, binding her closer to a fate she no longer wished to accept. In that dim, final moment of the day, as the city's lights began to twinkle far below, Sophia was forced to confront the bitter truth. The golden cage that she had once believed to be a symbol of love was, in reality, a prison from which there was no easy escape. And as Daniel's loving gaze held her captive, the silence in the room seemed to echo with the unspoken question, would she ever be free again?
Nightfall klokte svite in heavy shadows as Sophia leja vake, her mind a turbulent sea of fear and resolve.
While Daniel slept soundly beside her, the steady rhythm of his breathing became the background to her clandestine preparations. In the darkness, she moved with silent determination, gathering her few personal belongings, a passport tucked away in a secret drawer, a small envelope of cash, and the indispensable room key that symbolized both her confinement and her potential escape. Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper of fabric, set her nerves on edge. The suite, once a sanctuary of delicate beauty, now transformed into a battleground of wills. With trembling fingers, she secured her treasures in a small bag and checked the door for any signs of tampering. Her heart pounded in her ears as she steeled herself for what might be the most dangerous moment of her life. Sophia's plan was simple yet perilous. Wait for the darkest hour, when the world outside was silent and Daniel's guard might be at its lowest, and then make a dash for freedom. As the minutes ticked by, the silence in the suite became deafening, each second a silent countdown to her confrontation with fate. Every time she dared to glance at Daniel, she saw nothing but the peaceful expression of a man who believed his secret world was impenetrable, a man who could not fathom the betrayal now unfolding in his own home. At last, the moment arrived. With the quiet precision of someone who had rehearsed this scene in her mind countless times, Sophia crept toward the door. Her heart hammered in her chest like a frantic drumbeat, each step a defiant act of courage against the oppressive darkness of her situation. Just as her fingers brushed the cold metal of the doorknob, a low, chilling whisper halted her progress. "Did you really think you could run from me?" The voice, laced with a dangerous intimacy, came from behind her, halting her escape with a force that sent a shiver down her spine. In that split second, time itself seemed to freeze. She felt the warmth of Daniel's breath against her neck, his presence a looming specter in the dim light of the corridor. Sophia froze, the door just inches away from her trembling hand. The realization that her plan had been anticipated, that the man she had come to both love and fear was one step ahead, was almost too much to bear. Every muscle in her body screamed to fight, to break free from the chains that had bound her for so long. But as Daniel's silhouette filled the doorway, his eyes glinting with a mixture of possessiveness and malevolence, she knew that the final battle for her freedom had truly begun. In that heart-stopping moment, with the darkness as her only witness, Sophia's spirit ignited with desperate defiance. Though her body trembled, her eyes burned with the fierce resolve of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Tonight, in the silent war between captivity and freedom, every second would count, and the outcome would determine whether her soul would finally be set free or be lost forever in the shadows of a nightmare. As the tension in the suite reached its breaking point, Sophia slowly turned to face Daniel. Her eyes, wide with a mix of sorrow and steely determination, met his unwavering gaze. "Daniel, what are you hiding from me?" she asked, her voice trembling yet resolute, as if demanding the truth behind the mask he had so carefully worn. For a long, agonizing moment, neither spoke.
The Silence was heavy, laden with unspoken confessions and shattered illusions.
Daniel's lips curved into a smile that was at once tender and terrifying.
"I chose you, Sophia."
"And you chose me," he whispered, the words dripping with a possessiveness that sent a chill through her. His tone was soft, but there was an undercurrent of danger, a promise that escape was not only impossible but unthinkable. Every syllable of his voice reverberated like an iron chain, locking her fate to his in an embrace that felt both loving and suffocating. In that fraught moment, Sophia felt the full cost of freedom pressing upon her. The realization was agonizing. True escape would not come without sacrifice, and the price might well be her very life. Her mind raced with memories of whispered warnings, of subtle signs that had hinted at the man behind the charming facade. Now, those warnings merged with her desperate need for liberation, forming a resolve that burned brighter than her fear. Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes as she struggled to maintain her composure. She had once believed in the purity of their love, a love that would conquer all obstacles. Instead, she now found herself entangled in a web of manipulation and control, where every promise was a shackle and every smile a mask for something far more sinister. The realization that Daniel's world was one in which no one could ever truly walk away was as devastating as it was liberating. She knew that to break free, she would have to risk everything, even if that meant defying the man who had once made her feel cherished. In the oppressive stillness of that moment, the suite became a battleground of wills and desires. Daniel's soothing words, intended to lull her into submission, only stoked the flames of her defiance. She realized that the only way to reclaim her life was to face the darkness head-on, even if it meant paying the ultimate price. The promise of freedom, however distant and fraught with peril, now shone as the only beacon in a world that had become irreversibly shadowed by deceit. As their eyes locked in a silent duel of resolve and regret, Sophia knew that the coming moments would decide everything. In that fragile balance between love and terror, between hope and despair, she stood on the precipice of a choice that could either shatter her spirit or set it free, no matter the cost. In the final breathless moments of the night, the suite was charged with an electric tension. Daniel had moved closer, his presence overwhelming, as if to physically envelope her in a fate she had long dreaded. But in that desperate darkness, a spark of defiance ignited within Sophia, a realization that her life, her very soul, was worth fighting for. Time slowed as she acted on instinct. With trembling hands, Sophia seized a heavy lamp from the bedside table. The weight of it in her grasp was both a burden and a beacon of hope, a tool in the final battle for her freedom. As Daniel's eyes shone with a predatory gleam and his lips curled into a dangerous smile, she knew that the moment of reckoning had arrived. Without a moment's hesitation, she swung the lamp with all the force of her pent-up despair and determination. The crash was brutal, a cacophony of shattering glass and a sickening thud that echoed through the suite. Daniel staggered backward, a look of shock momentarily replacing the calm menace on his face. For a heartbeat, it seemed as though time itself had paused, offering Sophia a sliver of a chance to flee. In that brief pause, she bolted toward the door, her pulse pounding like a war drum in her ears. The alarms began to wail, a chaotic symphony that signaled the unraveling of the carefully constructed nightmare. Hotel staff burst into the corridor, their faces etched with alarm and confusion as they rushed to intervene. In the midst of the turmoil, Sophia's mind raced with both hope and terror. Could this be the moment when her long-caged spirit would finally break free? Just as she reached the main entrance, the world seemed to close in around her. A strong, iron grip seized her wrist, halting her desperate escape. The familiar, chilling voice of Daniel whispered in her ear, "Did you really think it would be this easy?" His grip tightened, and his eyes, dark, possessive, and unyielding, bore into her soul. In that final heart-stopping moment, as the cacophony of alarms and frantic footsteps melded with the thundering of her own heartbeat, Sophia's entire world hinged on a single excruciating question: is this truly the end? The future lay shrouded in uncertainty, a fragile balance between the desperate hope for freedom and the crushing certainty of his control. With her fate hanging by a thread, the night bore witness to the ultimate twist in their tragic dance, a twist that would forever blur the lines between love and terror, between the cost of freedom and the price of surrender. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please hit the like button, subscribe for more thrilling tales, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to us, Stay tuned for our next adventure.